right. Yeah, welcome to the Secrets Store CSI Driver biweekly meeting. Reminder, this call falls under the CNCF Code of Conduct, and the video is recording and will be published after the meeting. Here, let me try to share your screen. Tab. Oh, second. Tab.
Oh, Tommy, you're on mute.
Test. Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, so we've got our agenda here, and first announcement is the driver 1.1.0 was released a little over a week ago. I think that was Anish pressed the button on that one. Oh, I guess I can't quickly share another tab, but there should be release notes linked there. I think for discussion items, we just had the a keyless driver and Ori. Yeah, is that right?
Yeah.
Here, I'll switch over
We
to
also
that.
have Dima as a silent listener because he was the developer working on the provider, but I will be representing the company.
Cool. Trying to now share the other tab. Okay. Yeah. So a new provider, a keyless. Yeah. Do we have any? What should we? Yeah, I think a good times. Yeah. Do you want to give an introduction to just the driver and kind of the goals that you're hoping to have, and then we'll go over kind of some of the more details on how to get it actually the PR approved. Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. First of all, maybe a few words about ourselves. Keyless is a startup company, and we're dealing with the secret management, key management, and secure remote access. We're a SaaS platform running on multiple regions and multiple cloud providers, competing with vendors like HashiCorp Vault and others. What we're trying to do is to provide a similar functionality to the existing ones of other secret management stores that would allow users to use the CSI driver in order to fetch secrets at runtime by application pods and mount them as static files on or virtual files on the pods. We took some reference from other providers just to make sure that we're aligned in terms of how this was implemented. There are some similarities and some differences. The main gap that we've encountered is that we're unable to test it prior to getting the PR approved. So we wrote the tests, but we need your confirmation in order to run it and basically merge it in line. I can tell you that this is a feature request from several customers that we have. So I think that the adoption rate would be fairly high. So I think it's a shared interest for both of us to get this rolling.
Yeah. Cool. Let's see. Was there? I think when I looked at this, one of just the was it this one?
This is a private repo still. Would you like me to expose
yeah.
it? Okay, I'll do that right away.
So I think either Anish or Nilek, do we want to go over kind of how the end-to-end tests actually run? Because it can be a little bit weird when interacting with like I maintain the GCP one, so our E2E tests have to talk to actual GCP, and we have the Azure ones that talk to actual Azure. Vault is one of the ones that's unique in that it can run the Vault pod in the E2E test. And I think it would help us review if we had a little bit of an overview of kind of what the test was installing and those kind of things.
Sure. Let me fix it right away. Just a moment.
Yeah.
Anyone
Also,
I will explain.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, please.
No, so I was going to say.
I will.
No, I think there's a lag. Sorry, you go ahead.
I was just about to notify the visibility to that. I was about to say that the fact that we're a SaaS platform doesn't mean that we are business only. So we have a free tier, free community tier that allow you to sign up and register basically to anyone with limited scale, but it's more than enough for the testing purposes. Yeah, so it could be also integrated in your pipeline.
I was just gonna talk a little bit about the the GCP, Azure, and AWS right now all end up talking to different SaaS APIs. I think the way we've gone with that is that just each company has owned the testing accounts that like these tests will interact with. And then, the auth story there can be kind of confusing because the tests run in a it's in a Prow cluster on GCP infrastructure that is owned by the CNCF. And then those test cases start up a kind Kubernetes cluster within the Prow job. And then that kind cluster is the one that the driver and provider are installed to. So there's a bit of a complicated step of getting credentials into that Prow cluster, either as like static credentials or using like the GCP has a workload identity type feature. So I think that's probably something we would want to go over together to make sure we get either the credentials added to the right spot or get the correct identity for you for like providing ACLs on your SaaS API.
Makes perfect sense. And we also support GCP authentication method. So you can use your identity to authenticate without the need to have an initial secret or a secret zero in that case.
Yeah.
All we need is basically to add your account to our auth method.
Anish, did you have something to say there?
So when we started off, like we added quite a few tests to each provider, right? Like each provider that we support, we basically try to have like an extensive test suite. But then about 6 or 7 months back, Nilek worked on adding an E2E provider. So our focus has been to enhance the test suite there. And then the provider test, what we are expecting is a minimum set of tests that basically validate the existing contract between the driver and the provider, just to make sure that the driver is not breaking anything. And then these tests also signal to users that, hey, look, this works with our driver currently. So it is one of the reasons we call it supported providers. And in terms of how it works on a very high level, basically, I think you're running into an issue locally where you're not installing the driver. So there is a makefile target which just says make install release, and that will install the driver. And then you would just run the batch test suite with your particular set of tests, right? So your batch test suite would install your provider, and then it would basically just apply the secret provider class and then deploy the pods and then verify that it's able to access the secrets from a keyless in this instance. And then if you need more details about E2E, then Nilay can provide those details, right, for the E2E provider. But I think that, and then did you also get a chance to look at our onboarding new provider doc, which has some criteria in terms of the code review that the CSI driver community will do and some of those?
I think we have. I can get a confirmation from Dima in just a sec. But first of all, a quick question. Do I understand correctly that the prerequisite is to get the provider added before I can run the batch files?
I mean, you don't have to add the provider, right? So basically the driver already exists. In the batch file, you're installing your provider and running the test. So once the PR actually turns green, we know that this provider works. And then we will see the tests that you're adding, if they're sufficient enough, or if we need some more tests to make sure that there's the contract.
So I think initially, though, we need to approve the tests before they can see whether or not it works.
Oh, in the test infra, you mean?
They're pending.
Yeah.
They're in pending state, yes.
Yeah, so in test infra, we can do that. I think previously what we have done is we've just made it as optional tests. So we don't want to block on the test yet. And then with that, you can actually try to run it on your PR, validate it. And then we will go through the process of adding you as a new provider. And if everything goes through after a couple of months, what we do is we make these optional tests required, which means we'll start blocking PRs if the provider tests are actually failing.
Makes sense. And another question, I mean, assuming that the tests are sufficient and look comprehensive enough and successful, what other steps are required in order to get this merged to mainline?
Yeah, that was the doc that I was mentioning. So like we have a process where we do some code review to make sure that it's in conformance with what we support today. And then like if there are any recommendations. So we recently went through this with the AWS provider. So what we did was they open sourced their provider repo, and the maintainers and all the contributors, what we did a code audit. So we looked at the code, then suggested some changes on some of the best practices that we follow across different providers. And then once that is complete, and then we have the E2E tests with a passing rate, then we would add that provider to our documentation to say like, hey, look, this is a supported provider. I think Nilay had something to say before.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, I just wanted to add like a couple points. So the doc that Anish mentioning right now, right? We have just marked that in the issue discussion, so it might be easier for you to find out. The other thing I'm sort of thinking is, right, the prof might be like a chicken and egg situation that will have to probably either merge or get their a specific job in, or maybe they'll have to just use one of our job to run their test. I'm not sure how we should do this. But then there is one more thing I've seen in the PR, which sort of caught my eye. Like I saw some kind of a key in there. I'm not sure if it's a secret or something like that, but as Tommy was mentioning earlier, yeah, I saw it somewhere. I don't remember where exactly.
Yes, but you saw it correctly. It's a dummy account that we've established just for the purpose of testing. And I would much prefer to use the GCP authentication, even for appearance, because it catches the eye, and maybe an anomaly entropy test will find some keys there. So I would very much like to replace it with the GCP authentication.
Right, or sure, and or probably
what do you do in the case of Vault? In the case of Vault, how are you authenticating? HashiCorp, I mean.
They also use workload identity to authenticate.
Also, perfect. So we're not.
But also, if you have a plain text credential, like, I mean, there in Azure, we have service principal, right, where you have a client ID and client secret. The Kubernetes CSI interface has this thing called node publish secret reference. So it's basically providing your plain text credentials as a Kubernetes secret, and then just referencing that secret in your pod. So that would be an ideal way. If you also want to support like access keys. Like that's the one I think that was there in your YAML file. But these are the kind of things that we would try to catch in code audit and then suggest that like this would be something that can be implemented in a different way.
Yeah.
From my perspective, I think that the authentication method should be decoupled from the business logic, because we have internal testing for that. And I think that it would be sufficient to use the GCP workload identity in order to verify our business logic. And then we will avoid testing the keys in this concept because of the visibility.
Yeah, so I think there is a way, one, to get the identity. I'll try to look that up, the identity that our pod runs as, like our integration test. So like workload identity in the client cluster, I believe, is the like identity of one of the pods, or like of the pod that it's running as in the prow cluster. But there is also a way in the prow cluster to add like static secrets as Kubernetes secrets, and then to have that mounted into the test case. That's just a little bit of a difficult hop to describe, and it's in at least one other repo where that configuration is. So I will take a note to.
This would have to be done by you, I imagine, right? So we don't have access to the testing environment, so we cannot just inject the secrets there, right?
This is something that we can actually work with the Kubernetes prow community, right? So there's actually a working group. There's on Slack, Kubernetes Slack, there's SIG testing and then prow. And then this piece is something that we can help you with and then like familiarize you with, so that we can jointly work with the community, because if there are any issues in the future in terms of rotating threads and all those, it would be great if you can do that if there's an expired credential, right? And over the last few years, they have changed the way things are done. So it's a lot more user-friendly. So rather than us having to go back to the team to say, hey, can you go and update these credentials on the test cluster? You can actually just set it up in such a way that you go update it in like a Google Secret Manager, and then it will automatically pick up whatever credentials need to get updated in the Pro cluster. But we can help you with the process on what needs to be added, or we can connect you with the right set of folks to get that going.
That would be appreciated. Thank you. I'd like that.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Tommy, but today GCP uses workload identity, right? I think we moved even for the driver test.
The driver test, I believe, yes, because we had expired creds repeatedly, and that led to failing tests for the GCP provider. And I believe I have them now on workload identity. I'd have to verify, but I can add a link to that. And then, right, Anish, you said like we would try to get the test to pass in the PR, and then add it as optional test. Pass PR, and then
yeah. So we can add a PR. So I think Milek had a question, right? The chicken and egg thing. So we can add the test config in test infra. We can say required is false and then optional is true, which means it won't even run in any of the PRs. It needs to be explicitly run with /pull the whole thing. And we can do that until the PR passes. And then once the PR passes, we can say required is true, but optional is also true. And then once the test pass over a couple of weeks, then we can say optional is false. But we can share a sample config for the file. So then you can just use that file and then just modify it for your provider.
Do you have a Slack channel that we can communicate easier? Can you share the link on the chat and we can?
Sure.
Yeah, and then also just make sure we share the community. Oh yeah, the meeting agenda should have the Slack channel at the top too.
In that case, I have it.
And then, yeah. I do just want to say this is very exciting. Like we're happy to have more involvement, more providers. Yeah,
we have, I know it's probably by different maintainers, but we have lots of other integrations. I'm talking about the ESO project that we've contributed to a few months ago, and external KMS that we've implemented, and then a few other integrations that we've done already. So we'll be happy to extend it to CSI driver as well, and more integrations as we go.
and then
Rory, I'm just curious. Like, can you just point to any of the resources of your company or this particular product, just to get a glance of what it is?
Absolutely.
And if you can read offline.
I'll paste it in the chat here. And this is the marketing website, and this is the documentation side. And you can register to the application in this one.
Yeah, and then, like I said, we did this process maybe 1 year back. So if we do run into issues, this will also be like a great way for us to improve our onboarding process so we can update the docs and everything. So really excited to be working with you and your team.
Likewise, I think it's a good opportunity to test the onboarding process once again, and hopefully be able to assist in improving it.
I just wanted to make sure that what we covered was the question actually asked on the meeting agenda of how to add the new CSI provider and get the test case to pass. Right, like, are there other questions you have there? I think also over the next few, like between meetings, the Slack channel is probably the best way to communicate for us. But yeah, are there any other questions? Cool. I think that's all of the discussion items we had. Are there any other agenda items you want to go over?
Not agenda, but yeah, so we had the announcement that 1.1.0 is released, and then we have a bug fix for the JSON log, which has been cherry picked. So I think we need to decide when we want to do 1.1.1. We haven't had a lot of reports for that bug yet, so I think we can wait till next week. And then the next thing is we also need to plan for 1.2.0.
One just slight addition to that. I have probably a dependency on that JSON thing as well. I mean, if it should be okay if we are doing it like in next week, but probably for the ARC stuff, I think we'll need it to sort of push the log. So just FYI.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I think like if we don't have any other issues, then we can get it as early as early next week. Like if there's no other bugs that we need to fix.
Yeah, let's see. I should have some time Monday morning to help with that. Yeah. Cool. Anish, did you want to go over bugs now, or should we just, you know, put out a call for like, if you want something in 1.2.0, post it on the bug kind of thing?
Yeah, I think that works. So we can, I think there's already a milestone for 1.2.0.
Yeah. Here, sorry, I'll try to share. again. Yeah, right now what we have is the path where providers are supposed to create the Unix socket. There's the effort to transition it from under etcd/Kubernetes to var/run. And the 1.1.0 will now check in both locations for the providers. And I think we need to wait like a release or two. I think 1.2.0 will change the default, and then in 1.3 plus, we will start to stop checking in etc and to let the providers migrate over. And then there is the requires republish, which has been a long-running effort to have the CSI driver interface added in a way to inject an auth token for the pod that is being scheduled into the mount request. We have that now supported for the both initial mounts and Initian 1.0 or 1.1.0 added support for it and requires republish. I think both of those require a bit of additional configuration to get it working. But we're trying to move to that because it removes some of the permissions that are needed by the driver and gives a consistent interface to providers to always expect an auth token for the pod that is being scheduled, which helps with things like using the pod's identity for authenticating to the external secret managers. So yeah, I think there's just some work to make that maybe the default in 1.2.
Yeah, I think it's a little tricky. I mean, we can add it, but we probably need to support that and our rotation reconcilers for a brief period. So I think Nilik did bring up a good point in the last meeting, right? That we cannot say that this will only work after certain Kubernetes version. So we still need to support it for the older ones. So I think we implement it and then we basically switch between this or that based on the Kubernetes version. If requires republish is set. And then I think over the next few releases, maybe 1.3 or something, we'll say the default is this and like we can actually wait. Because I think end of life for 120 is, I think Tommy, you added June 28th.
I believe
I remember you had added that in the GC.
Yeah.
Oh, end of life is Feb 28th. Scroll up. I think you had it in one of your comments.
Sorry.
Yeah.
28.2 is you.
I think it's 1.22. I think I posted on the GCP provider more details on the timeline there. Yeah, I think we can't assume it until 1.22.
Okay.
Which is July. Is when 1.21 is end of life. But
yeah, so we can support it. At least it will give us like a test run to see if it's working as expected or if we need to modify anything to keep the behavior. Like we can just keep it as an experimental feature. And then once 122 is and once 121 is end of life, we can basically say like, hey, look, we've had these many months of a run with requires republish. I think we're confident with using that for rotation. And then we basically move that to beta and say default now, and then we can graduate that to G. And then get rid of our rotation.
Yeah, and then just for context for the A keyless folks, is that the rotation feature specifically of the CSI driver is still in kind of a preview state, which sorry, we have yeah, the things that are stable are the secret provider class, custom resource definition, the initial what's it call it, like loading of secrets into the pod, but rotation and then syncing the secrets, like writing the secrets from the secret provider class to Kubernetes secrets is one that is, these two are not as mature features in the driver.
Yeah. We've done something similar, but first of all, we support different kinds of secrets, obviously static secrets, but dynamic and rotated secrets as well. Mm-hmm. We've implemented something like that using our secret injection functionality, using a sidecar container that we inject with a mutating webhook. Mm-hmm. For this one, we would be happy to improve it, but I kind of suggest we do that as a second iteration because our existing customers are mostly focused on static secrets for their applications.
Yeah. Yeah, just wanted to call that out, that like there is a little bit of churn on the provider side that may be coming up with trying to get the rotation more mature on the driver side.
Yeah, and then there are like a couple of the test ones that we wanted to do and then doc updates. Like I think we can also get them added for the milestone, but we don't have to do it now. Like I think we can also do it.
Okay, yeah, let's do that asynchronously, I think. And we'll try to add the 1.2.0 label to different things. And if anyone has ones they would like to raise, I think Slack are just commenting on the issue. We'll move it if you don't have permission. Yeah. I think that brings us to the end of the agenda. Is there anything else?
No, Ari, do you have everything that you need? Because once the meeting closes, the chat goes away. So just want to make sure.
I think we have next steps. We made the implementation public so you can review it. I would be happy to get your approval on the testing. We'll continue to work on the credentials and the test credentials, and how to integrate them with the test environment. And I will just sign up to the Slack channel. We'll continue the conversation over there. Okay.
Great. All right. Well, thanks everyone for
Appreciate
attending.
your help, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.